think I done it perfectly this time. I think I done did it perfectly this time. Oh yes, sirree. Oh yes, sirree. Oh yeah. That's just me now. That's just me now. And we slowly transition to hey, hi, hello. Hey, hi, hello.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the Quarantine Report.
15-minute
I'm Amy Goodman.
Because I haven't seen any of it.
After weeks of protests over the death of George Floyd, who died after a Minneapolis police officer killed him by kneeling on his neck for nearly 9 minutes, family and friends gathered in Houston Tuesday for a private funeral to lay George Floyd to rest and to call for change. This is Brooke Williams, George Floyd's niece, speaking at the funeral.
These laws need to be changed. No more hate crimes, please. Someone said, make America great again. But when has America ever been great?
Got it right to ask.
Those 4 officers were literally on him for 9 minutes, and none of them showed they have a heart or soul. This is not just murder, but a hate crime. I share happy memories with my uncle. Now that's all I have, are memories.
After the funeral, George Floyd's golden coffin was driven to a cemetery to be buried beside his mother. Thousands lined the streets as his motorcade passed. The last mile, his coffin was carried in a horse-drawn carriage. After headlines, we'll air excerpts from George Floyd's funeral service, including remarks by his brother, Philonis, who's testifying today before the House Judiciary Committee in Washington, D.C. Coronavirus cases are continuing to soar across the United States as the death toll tops 112,000. The Washington Post reports COVID-19 hospitalizations are increasing in at least 9 states following the reopening of businesses. Texas, North and South Carolina, California, Oregon, Arkansas, Mississippi, Utah, and Arizona are all seeing a surge in patients needing medical attention. Texas has seen 2 consecutive days of record coronavirus hospitalizations. On Tuesday, the nation's top infectious disease doctor, Anthony Fauci, described coronavirus as his, quote, worst nightmare and said the pandemic is not close to over yet. The Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation has revised its projected U.S. death toll upwards, predicting 145,000 deaths by early August. Voters headed to the polls in 5 states Tuesday. In Georgia, some voters had to wait in line for as long as 5 hours in the heat and rain due to widespread problems with new electronic voting machines and a shortage of trained poll workers. Georgia's Republican Secretary of State has launched a probe. Former gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams said, quote, it's a disaster that was imminently preventable. We found ourselves in the mix of both incompetence and malfeasance. The New York Times has published drone footage showing hundreds of people waiting in line at one site. The lines were so long, judges extended voting hours at polls in at least 20 counties, including in areas with large African-American communities. Reporters from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution posted videos of voters complaining about the long lines. This is 80-year-old Anita Hurd.
Ridiculous. In the United States of America, this time, people can vote. People are killing each other and can't get along. I don't have to like you, but I respect you as a human being. What is going on? And now we get here. People have been, look at these people. We've been waiting. We've been waiting since 6 o'clock this morning. 6 o'clock, if you go around this building, you'll see people waiting in line. This is unfair.
DeKalb County Commissioner Merida Davis Johnson said, quote, if this is a preview of November, then we're in trouble. unquote. Georgia's closed over 200 polling places since the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013. Results from the Georgia election won't be finalized for days. Jon Ossoff is leading in the Democratic Senate primary, but a runoff may still be needed to decide who will challenge Republican Senator David Perdue in November. In other election news, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham survived a challenge from 3 fellow Republicans in South Carolina. He'll face Democrat Jamie Harrison in November. Protests against racism and police brutality continue to rock cities and towns across the United States and around the world. In Richmond, Virginia, protesters toppled a statue of Christopher Columbus on Tuesday evening. They set it on fire before throwing it in a nearby lake. In Antwerp, Belgium, city officials removed a statue of King Leopold II Tuesday, just days after protesters set it on fire. From 1885 to 1908, Leopold declared himself absolute ruler of Congo, leading a campaign of torture and genocide that killed an estimated 10 million people. In England, authorities have removed a statue of 18th-century Scottish Lord Robert Milligan from outside the Museum of London Docklands after protesters covered it in a tarp and a Black Lives Matter sign. Milligan enslaved over 500 people on his family's sugar plantations in Jamaica. The statue's removal was welcomed by City Councillor Amina Ali.
It's a victory, and for the ancestors and the people whose lives have been affected by slavery, this is a victory today. So it's very symbolic, and I'm glad it's happened in my lifetime.
Washington State, hundreds of Black Lives Matter protesters took over Seattle City Hall Tuesday evening, demanding the defunding of the Seattle Police Department and the resignation of Mayor Jenny Durkan. Police did not try to stop the protesters as they marched downtown, unlike on previous nights when officers unloaded with a barrage of so-called less lethal firepower. On Monday, Seattle City Council member Teresa Mosqueda condemned the mayor's militarized response to protests.
How many people need to write in about being gassed in their own homes? How many people have to be sprayed in the street every night or experience getting hit with flash bombs or rubber bullets? How many people have to call for the police to be defunded, for you to consider resigning, or for the mayor to embrace radical change?
Here in New York State, lawmakers have voted to ban the use of police chokeholds and to repeal a controversial law known as 50A that shields the disciplinary records of police officers from the public. The vote came despite heavy lobbying from police unions to keep officers' records secret. In Phoenix, Arizona, hundreds of protesters have taken to the streets demanding justice for 28-year-old Deon Johnson, who was killed by a police officer on the same day George Floyd was killed in Minnesota. On May 25th, Johnson...
Are you kidding me right now? The same day. The same day. I hate how, like, sometimes, like, murders are just, like, trickling out of the system. Like... You getting like drips of just here's another murder that happened recently, and now we got one that was on the same day as Floyd, and I don't even know the specifics yet. It's just the fact that here we go. All right.
Johnson was allegedly sleeping in his car on the side of a North Phoenix highway when a Department of Public Safety trooper shot him, alleging he feared he would be pushed into oncoming traffic. Johnson's family is demanding the release of the name of the trooper, the official report of the incident, and any video footage that may exist. The trooper was reportedly not wearing a body camera, did not have a dashboard camera, and there were no known witnesses. Johnson's family's called on the U.S. Justice Department to investigate and for the trooper to be arrested and charged. In Minneapolis, police have admitted officers slashed the tires of unoccupied vehicles parked near recent protests over the killing of George Floyd after Mother Jones magazine published photos and videos of several incidents. A Department of Public Safety spokesperson Tuesday said state troopers had, quote, strategically deflated tires. In other news from Minneapolis, the TV station Fox 9 is reporting federal and state prosecutors were negotiating a possible plea deal with former officer Derek Chauvin just days after he killed George Floyd. The negotiations fell apart on May 28th. The following day, Chauvin was charged and arrested. A warning to our viewers, this next story contains graphic images of police violence. In Austin, Texas, Black Lives Matter activists are demanding the arrest of officers who sent 2 young people to the hospital with head trauma at recent protests. On May 31st, police shot 20-year-old Texas State University student Justin Howell in the head with a lead pellet bag fired by an officer's shotgun. After he fell unconscious to the pavement, he was picked up by fellow protesters who tried to rush him past a police line for medical attention. The police then opened fire with another barrage. Powell was hospitalized in critical condition with a fractured skull and brain damage. A day earlier, another Austin officer shot 16-year-old Brad Levy Ayala in the head with a beanbag round as the teen stood passively on a hillside near a line of riot police. Ayala's family says he's undergoing neurological testing at an Austin hospital and faces a long road to recovery. In San Jose, California, police shot their own anti-bias trainer in the groin, rupturing his testicle with a rubber-coated bullet as he tried to de-escalate tension between police and protesters at a May 29th rally. Doctors say 27-year-old Derek Sanderlin, who's African-American, may never be able to father children. In Los Angeles.
I mean, I don't really want to sound too fucked up, but that, like, the world speaks in really fascinating ways sometimes. I don't want to call it poetic because this is disgusting. This is gross. The fact that it's just the fact that he's the actual trainer for these cops for their bias training, and he gets shot. Like, sometimes the world just speaks, you know? Nobody's got to say anything. Yeah, wow. I'm thrown off by that one.
Los Angeles police officer Frank Hernandez was arrested Tuesday on felony assault charges. Video shot in April showed him brutally beating Richard Castillo, an unhoused man who'd been squatting in a Boyle House property amidst the coronavirus lockdown. Here in New York police officer Vincent D'Andrea has been charged with assault, criminal mischief, harassment, and menacing after video showed him violently shoving a peaceful protester to the ground as he shouted an expletive and a misogynistic slur at her. 20-year-old Dunya Zaire suffered a seizure and was hospitalized with concussion after the May 29th attack. President Trump has tweeted an attack on a longtime Buffalo police activist who was assaulted by police officers at a Black Lives Matter protest last week. In video of the assault, which has been viewed by millions, 2 Buffalo police officers are seen violently shoving 75-year-old Martin Gugino to the ground. Dozens of officers walk by as blood pours from Gugino's head. On Tuesday morning, as Gugino lay in a hospital recovering from head trauma, President Trump amplified a conspiracy theory pushed by right-wing news outlet One America News, tweeting, quote, "Buffalo protester shoved by police could be an Antifa provocateur. 75-year-old Martin Gugino was pushed away after appearing to scan police communications in order to black out the equipment. I watched. He fell harder than was pushed. Was aiming scanner. Could be a setup," Trump tweeted. We'll speak with one of Martin Gugino's close friends and fellow activists later in the broadcast.
We've discussed all of this.
In Russia, Moscow's mayor has eased coronavirus restrictions, even as coronavirus cases continue to surge in the Russian capital. The easing of the lockdown comes ahead of a nationwide vote that could extend President Vladimir Putin's rule. Moscow continues to report over 1,000 new COVID-19 cases daily, while Russia as a whole is nearing 500,000 infections. Russia has reported over 6,300 coronavirus deaths. Oof. In Brazil, a Supreme Court judge Tuesday ordered the government of far-right President Jair Bolsonaro to immediately begin releasing updated coronavirus statistics just days after the country stopped publishing new reported COVID-19 deaths and infections. Brazil currently has the world's second highest rate of coronavirus cases, nearing 750,000, and has more daily deaths than any other country in the world. Officially, over 38,000 people in Brazil have died of COVID-19, though that number is likely a significant undercount. The World Health Organization has walked back a top official's claim that asymptomatic people rarely spread the coronavirus to others. The
Bruh. You can't have the WHO saying one thing one day and then refute itself the next day. Like, that just shows irresponsibility and illegitimacy. That's fucked up, man.
WHO's confused messaging on the topic drew criticism from public health officials. The Harvard Global Health Institute said, quote, "In fact, some evidence suggests people may be most infectious in the days before they become symptomatic. That is, in the pre-symptomatic phase when they feel well, have no symptoms, but may be shedding substantial amounts of virus," unquote. Meanwhile, 2 new papers published in the journal Nature find coronavirus lockdowns save.
Like, I mean, this is why people don't trust authority, is because we constantly have, like, conflicting informations. I don't know if it's that we have to, like, withhold information before everybody gets on a consensus, or if, I don't know what the fuck's going on with the science community. I'm not a fucking scientist. I'm just pissed off that they can't confirm their own shit and get on the same fucking page so that people can live. It's, bullshit.
Millions of lives and averted tens of millions of infections worldwide. UC Berkeley researcher Solomon Chiang co-authored one of the reports.
Never in human history have so many people around the world come together, coordinated their actions, and worked to save so many lives in such a short period of time.
In Burundi, President Pierre Nkurunziza was pronounced dead Monday morning of an apparent heart attack. Many are speculating his death may have been due to COVID-19 complications after the long-serving president fell ill over the weekend. The president had refused to impose coronavirus restrictions, allowing sporting events and mass political rallies to take place during the pandemic. In environmental news, President Trump Friday gutted protections for the country's only maritime monument in the Atlantic Ocean by opening up the Northeast Canyons and Seamounts Marine National Monument to commercial fishing.
Oh my
Gib
God.
Brogan from the advocacy group Oceana said,
Is this like revenge for the statues? Are they going to kill a bunch of fucking dolphins because of some statues? I'm tired of making money. Let's make space travel. Fuck money.
quote, "Protecting deep-sea waters is a win-win for both fishermen and healthy oceans, as healthy oceans from the sea floor to the surface will help sustain robust fisheries for years to come," he said. Legal challenges are expected. In climate news, temperatures in parts of the Arctic Circle in northern Russia have topped 86 degrees Fahrenheit this month, continuing a record-breaking heat wave that began in May. Climate data show last month was the planet's warmest May ever recorded, keeping 2020 on pace to become the hottest year since record-keeping began. The 10 hottest years on record have all come since 2005. And after 33 years, the reality TV show Cops has been canceled.
Cops has been canceled. Talked about this shit this morning too. Proud of it. It's still syndicated, so it's probably gonna play like 24/7 on some channel, but no new episodes. You get no new episodes of Cops because it seems like a pretty bad idea right now. They do not have good publicity. Cops right now has bad ratings. Not the show, just like Cops. Ooh. That's great. There's some good news
Keep your hands on the car. I'm doing my job.
In 2013, the group Color of Change launched a campaign to cancel the show, saying it, quote, built a profit model around distorted and dehumanizing portrayals of Black Americans in the criminal justice system. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report, and the Quarantine Report. I'm Amy Goodman in New York City, joined by my co-host Juan Gonzalez at his home in New Brunswick, New Jersey. Hi, Juan.
Hi, Amy, and good day to all of our listeners and viewers across the country and around the world.
Yo, Juan. Google is like putting me through the ringer on these security questions, and it's frustrating the fuck out of me. I think it's because I have Nord and what, I don't know if they I guess you know, bots probably use peer-to-peer servers, so I guess, you know, better safe than sorry. But it's pretty fucking annoying because I've never had to go through these many questions just for it to tell me that I got my password wrong too. Like, oh my god. Like, don't throw me into the robot questions if I didn't even get my password right. What are we doing? This really hurts, Google. This really hurts. I gotta go through another one. Oof. Oof. Not good. Not good. Nope. Let's see here. The ring-a-ding-dingers. Visual Politic, great channel. It's behind the wave of protests in the U.S. It would be interesting to hear how they spin this. I don't mean to say that everybody throws a spin on narratives, but let's just say
choreographing.
Some people make some things more interesting than they really are. So I think we're gonna do Laura Ingraham until I can get this fucking
chaos. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, maybe you've noticed what I've noticed. When they know the cameras are rolling, most Democrats will go to great lengths to say how much they care about black people. Yet weekend
This is true.
after weekend of horrific killings of African Americans in Chicago, and nary a peep from them. No demands that leadership be improved, that cases be solved, that murder CHAZ charges be filed. No visits to family members usually, and why?
If we're talking about like mainstream Democrats, this is all very true.
Because there's no political leverage in those situations, that's why. Instead, the same folks who complained about President Trump's walk across Lafayette Park pretend to show how much they empathize by just producing silly political theater. Yes.
I mean, we can call what he did silly political theater. Was it not? Such a strong man. What a strong move. How powerful.
Yesterday, the moment was so rife with emotion that one congresswoman used the occasion to check her cell phone. See her in the back? And not only did the entire Democrat Party ditch social distancing over the past few weeks.
God damn it, they actually don't. I feel like the mainstream Democrats make it too easy for conservatives to dunk on them. That was too easy. Like, oh my god, I didn't even notice that. And wow, look at this. I don't like this photo either. I don't like how they did it. I don't like what they're wearing. I've made my point about that, but Laura hitting them with them ring-a-dingers.
Cell phone, see her in the back? And not only did the entire Democrat Party ditch social distancing over the past few weeks, now their leaders are totally fine with cultural misappropriation. Look at Nancy there. When proposals to bring back jobs are what we need, all they have are props. It's so insulting, and beyond that, it's just embarrassing. And how utterly ineffective. Disadvantaged communities have been drowning in liberal rhetoric for years. But what are the results? Well, for the media coverage, politicians like D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser will order government employees to paint streets with the woke message du jour. Yet what she does not want to defend is her party's opposition to school choice in the district, which relegates black youth to underperforming schools.
Ooh,
well, she
school
hopes,
choice
I think,
is
that if
just
young African
code word for
Americans
private schooling.
end up believing that America is going to be always against them,
no,
that they won't notice how lame her own leadership has been.
Exactly. Like, you're on the same boat, Laura. You don't recognize how lame your party is. Both of your parties are lame. It's sad how lame both of your parties are.
But when they don't know the microphones are turned on, We occasionally hear truth from prominent liberals in Congress.
Same thing about senators and Republicans. You could exchange either or.
Such as this revealing press conference about the George Floyd protests from New York Congressman Elliot Engel.
And there's just too many folks here.
I didn't have a primary, I wouldn't care.
Say that again?
I didn't have a primary, I wouldn't care.
Don't do that to me.
I guess Democrats think you're so stupid that you don't see through their pathetic play acting.
They might, but I know Republicans do, for sure.
And by the way, speaking of bad actors, here's Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
Driving around the South and West Side, seeing neighborhoods devastated by looting, shop owners literally crying tears because so much of their whole body and person was invested in setting up and running these businesses, only to see their hopes dashed.
I thought you couldn't say buildings matter too. Well, my friends, what you just saw from Lori Lightfoot is a poor attempt at damage control. Because yesterday, everyone in Chicago, and even today, was talking about audio obtained by a local news station, TTW. And it was from a May 31st conference call between Lightfoot and the city aldermen. All of whom, by the way, are Democrats, mind you. Now, during the conversation, aldermen were literally crying and distraught over the horrendous destruction in their neighborhoods that they represent.
My ward is a shit show. It's cop cars burning, banks burning. We had to put the bridges up. They're shooting at the police. It wasn't a protest. It wasn't anything like this. Business owners that are sitting there with shotguns in their hand because they're scared somebody's going to come. You know, it's like, what are we going to have left in our community?
Nothing.
And you want to know something? I've worked really hard over the last 7 years. And now I feel like I'm 5 feet back. 5 steps back.
I'm ground zero. That's how I feel about it. My major business district is just shattered. You lose the 2 biggest icons. Why would Walmart or CVS come back to our communities?
Well,
why would these major companies come back to their communities? We should all fear so much. What would we ever do without companies? I mean, I wouldn't be here without a bunch of companies, but I mean, oh my God, it's you're seeing the values, the true values of the establishment there. And unfortunately, the ones who are pointing it out is, again, Laura Ingraham, somehow just being able to knock the shit out of liberals because they just set them up. They set them up. And that's why Trump's going to win, because he set up. Like, who the fuck wanted Biden? Who? During all the time that we had all those candidates, who wanted that old man?
She was prescient. There are reports today that Walmart may indeed not reopen stores in the riot-stricken areas of Chicago. Well, can you really blame them? Or frankly, any other businesses wanting to cut their losses and head for the exits at this point?
Right.
Who would want to risk real money in cities run by mayors who basically think, again, when the cameras or microphones aren't on, that looters and criminals should be given room to express themselves? Expect other blue cities to see the same exodus. In Minneapolis, nearly 500 businesses were damaged or destroyed during the mostly peaceful protests. Rioters burned down a major manufacturing plant that stood in the city for 30-plus years. It's going to be rebuilt, just not in Minneapolis. But like Lightfoot in Chicago, Jacob...
She had this little twinkle in her eye when she said that CVS isn't going to return to Minneapolis. Is that who she said it was? Oh, 7 Sigma. I don't know why I thought CVS, but
Pajama Boy Fry doesn't seem to care that businesses vacate his city. What's worse, they're just blasé when challenged about protecting their own citizens. Here's an alderman pressing Lightfoot about the slow response of the Chicago PD.
Mayor, can I just say one thing on that? The police do not engage early before the crowds get big.
I will tell you, Alderman Dow, I know that you have some specific concerns, and you and I have discussed them briefly. I've been on calls all day asking people to step up and use their voices in their network and distinguish between righteous First Amendment protests and what we're seeing all over our city, which is just criminal conduct.
Ooh, use their voices? Well, that's going to bring back jobs and confidence and solve.
Is she mocking the First Amendment right now? I feel like she's mocking the First Amendment right now. Laura, that's not responsible. That's not responsible journalism. Don't do that.
Solve the crime problem. What is she even talking about? But again,
like, fuck employment if we can't speak, right?
It's worse. At one point, Alderman Raymond Lopez is going to join us in just a moment. He'd had enough and directly confronted Mayor Lightfoot and her cliches, or bromides, and he focused on both the violence and her role in stoking it.
Half our neighborhoods are already obliterated. It's too late. We have to come up with a better plan, because my fear is once they're done looting and rioting and whatever's going to happen tonight, God help us, what happens when they start going after residents?
Oh, wow. He thought the people in the protests would start just murdering people in the neighborhoods. That's a representative. Alderman Raymond Lopez. Oh. Well, he's obviously the one recording this phone conversation, because his voice doesn't sound like it's over the phone. But this is some dirty dog shit. This is some dirty dog shit. Oh, wow. Going into the neighborhoods once they start trying to break down people's doors where they think they've got something. Somehow people who are genuinely angry at the system are also a bunch of uncontrollable, immoral heathens coming for your TVs, Xboxes, and the like. Again, he's having a hard time distinguishing protesters, actual members of what we believe to be the idea of America, and then opportunists who see free shit. 'Cause fuck it, bro. You fucked up, you know. If you were doing your job, your city wouldn't be losing its goddamn mind.
Going into the neighborhoods. Once they start trying to break down people's doors who they think they got something, and you've got them all pumped today, they're not going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I've got gangbangers with AK-47s walking around right now, just waiting to...
I've got gangbangers with AK-47s walking around right now. We're losing people. People is no longer a noun. There's gangbangers and there's citizens. It has been decreed from higher up.
To settle some scores. What are we going to do, and what do we tell our residents other than good faith people stand up? It's not going to be enough. Well, no, I want an answer. You commented on everybody. I want an answer. It's not something you ignore. This is a question that I have.
I think you're 100% full of what I think.
The mayor told him straight up, I think you're 100%. I think you're 100% full of shit. This guy, awesome. This got really awesome. It's not going to be spun very well for her on Fox News. Here we are. But yes, that is fuck yeah, bro. I actually am really feeling for Mayor Lori Lightfoot now. She a lib that is living that life, bro. Holy fuck.
No offense, then.
Oh, that's funny. And then he's like, well, no offense. Well, fuck you then. Who are you to tell me I'm full of shit? She's the mayor? I don't even know what an alderman does. Have you ever voted for an alderman? Let's see. Homie just seems like he's hungry for a promotion, especially since he's recording the conversation. I'm just saying, sus is sus. It's an elected member of a municipal council. All right, well, he's a city council member. That's fucking hilarious. Oh my god. He's not respecting the hierarchy, though, just because she's a Democrat and he has to fit the Republican narrative so he can eat a fat dick. So far, Lightfoot is getting my vote in this battle of dim-witted politicians. Actually, I don't know Lightfoot that well, but fuck politicians.
Who are you to tell me I'm full?
And if you think we were not ready and we stood by and let the neighborhood go up, there's nothing intelligent that I can say to you.
Oh, see, come on. Come on. See? That was a good answer. That's a good answer to that. You think that she would stood by and let the neighborhood go up. There's nothing intelligent that she could say to aldermen. If he thinks that literally they would lose so much control. But I mean, I don't know. What I really want to get into is Seattle losing control, but it's not a bunch of murders. No, instead it's just demands.
Well, maybe you should come out and see what's going on.
The stupidest thing I have ever heard. I understand you want to preen. I understand that you think that you...
Mayor, you need to check your attitude. That's what you need to do.
So he cusses her out again.
Wow.
Cusses at
That's
her
all
again.
I can say is wow.
They're both terrible.
Now, just a few weeks ago, Mayor Lightfoot, remember she was harassing people for not social distancing and like hanging out and doing picnics and gatherings in their homes? But now she's demonizing anyone who questions her and her results. But I was thinking that conversation kind of sums it all up. If Democrats get in control really in November, we'll all be told just how dumb we are and to stop preening when we point out how certain types of leadership is just sending us off the rails.
Certain types of leadership is just sending us off the rails.
Softball.
Certain types of leadership is just sending us off the rails. Priming. It's a whole lot of priming. I don't know how much primer the Republican Party can paint before they actually really get into it, but god damn, they really prime that shit up, bro. It's effective. It's effective, I'll give them that.
Interview on MSNBC is going to be able to contain rogue mayors like Lightfoot or stand up to the radicals who are emerging as leaders of the Democrat Party like these?
If you're an elected official that for any reason is on this call, I'm asking you to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that overfunded police departments are defunded?
We need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
Yeah.
When Biden says he doesn't agree with their views on defunding the police, I wouldn't believe him for a second. That man can't control that squad any better than he can figure out what that person in his ear is always telling him to say.
Ooh, throwing those dunks on Biden again. Look at that. We're just going to be dunking on Biden until November. Oh, man. Yeah, I don't think he would fix much either. Yeah, he's a patchworker. You know, that's what liberals tend to do when they get into the positions of authority, is just kind of patchwork the damage that Republicans cause. But the damage that Republicans cause is becoming more and more intrusive and devastating to everybody's lives. So, God damn, Laura, you just don't like people then. Like, you just want America to be with, like, less gangbangers.
When you dial 911 during a Biden presidency, expect to hear something like this.
Oh my God. How many times are we going to hear this fucking fake ass recording just because the Minneapolis police aren't allowed to fucking control their population anymore? Oh, God damn it.
We're sorry. You have reached a number that has been disconnected or is no longer in service.
Well, to stop the destruction, you can't project this vague sense that everyone should just be nicer.
I'm surprised
when
they didn't play that other
rioters
message.
are running amok all over the city, all over the country, You got to get them in check, and Donald Trump understood the importance of stopping them. And by the way, so do honest liberals. And Trump, and I think there are a number of Democrats who see that poor people also need good jobs. They don't need more empty promises or slogans or gestures.
How did this become an argument about poor people needing good jobs? I thought this was about police reform. How did we get on the subject of jobs again? Like earlier, it's free speech or jobs, and now it's she said police or jobs. So, I mean, I can't stress enough that those two things combined is equal to a police state. It's equal to a police state. I don't know how anybody can defend that's not the position here. And I really wish somebody would, because I don't understand how people can justify this like thought process at all.
They know that working families need safe neighborhoods, not
just because people care about jobs?
Higher crime rates. You know, certain people on the left are promising, you know,
like imagine if we in a hypothetical country, say like people got rid of their government. I bet there's a lot of work to be done at that point.
They'll cry when you suffer. President Trump and people who actually get it, well, they promise to be actually cheering when you succeed, regardless of your skin color. And those panicked voices you heard on that call in Chicago, expect to hear more like them across the country.
I mean, Donald Trump will applaud you no matter what color you are, so long as you're rich and willing to also accept the institutions that we have already in place so that they can keep benefiting the most. Being rich does buy you a certain amount of immunity. We can admit that. But for how long? It kind of depends.
Unless we opt for common sense and reject choreographed chaos.
It's really rough when Republicans ask for common sense. And then what's kind of funny to me, too, is that, what did she say? Gotta rewind it. Oh, choreographed events? What was that?
Common sense and reject choreographed chaos.
Choreographed chaos. Choreographed chaos.
Unless we opt for common sense and reject choreographed chaos.
So strange. It's so strange because yet again, I mean, I have to remind people that Republicans are in the positions of authority here. They have the opportunity to change police and how it treats its citizens from the ground up. Attorney General Bill Barr said 2 nights ago that he wants to do the exact opposite of that. So shifting blame, victim blaming, it's all the same. It's all the same, and it's always going to be the same. Fox News talks news. TOX. Marvelous. I really only wanted to get on that while I was trying to find some other shit, because fuck you, Laura. You do not help the situation. Let's see. That's pretty cool. I did see something over here. And apparently Confederacy is trending pretty hard. Wait. Oh, Blazing Saddles is fucking trending right now? Why? Blazing Saddles was explicitly anti-racist and mocked bigotry, you absolute morons. Yeah, but like the amount of racism in there is so fucking heavy. Blazing Saddles will endure because apart from being an unbelievably funny movie, Brooks and Pryor's whole premise was, let's make the racists look like assholes. You know what? Good call. Yeah, I mean, that's how it is. And the star of the movie is a black sheriff. So, fuck whatever racists have to say about that movie, because they probably interpreted it wrong. I talked to somebody who interpreted Tusk wrong, thinking about it's just transgendering everybody. It's not. It's about narcissists not seeing people. You got two different narcissists, but I don't want to get into that. A housing apocalypse is coming. Thanks, CNBC. This is what everybody needs. I feel like I'm probably going to want to read this at some point. But not right now. Because what I had originally wanted to read is much more important. And that's a motherfucking fact. With a capital F. I didn't drag it over. The demands of the collective black voices at Free Capitol Hill to the government of Seattle, Washington. Posted on Medium, which is a great blog for people to just put their thoughts, feelings, suggestions, tips, I don't know, recipes. It's got everything. And it's also got the first post by Free Capitol Hill. And I could not believe that I woke up this morning to the idea of an American city being called an autonomous zone. That is some crazy fucking shit. Like, that's the kind of shit that has so far really, what really sticks out to me in my head is Rojava and back in World War II days, Catalonia. I'm sure there's a lot more examples, but I am a limited brain bandwidth, and those are the two I know about. For anybody who doesn't know what autonomous zones are, it's probably been Googled a fuck ton today. Anti-racist protesters in Seattle establish an autonomous zone. What's really funny, though, is what they really should put there is anti-fascist protesters. Because they need to stand in solidarity with the people that Trump is trying to label as terrorists. And any left-wing group movement, according to Ted Fascist Cruz. Anonymous News holds it down. Anarchists take over Seattle police station and establish autonomous zone. I'm not really sure if it's really that anarchic. I would definitely say it's probably made up of left groups. Not sure if I'm really ready to give all the credit to the anarchists yet, but you know, there's more research to do because I found out this morning, been wanting to look at it all day, and now here I am. That's funny, they don't have a real definition for it. Wiki does. And Wiki says a permanent autonomous zone, PAZ, is a community that is autonomous from the generally recognized state or authority structure in which it is embedded. Like Rojava, which was in the state of Syria, Catalonia, which was in the state of Spain. PAZs are not controlled by any government, as recognized by other governments, or any religious authority. I guess. But, you know, it's interesting language because you could have an autonomous zone when you have, I don't know, say a democracy. That's basically what it is. And that's what anarchy is. It's, I don't know, maybe it is just another word for anarchy. Another phrase for it, just so that we stop calling it that. In credit to the people who freed Capitol Hill, this list of demands is neither brief nor simplistic. This is no simple request to end police brutality. We demand, keep that language up, that the city council and the mayor, whoever that may be, implement these policy changes for the cultural and historic advancement of the city of Seattle and to ease the struggles of its people. And that big whoever that may be is because the mayor had to resign. Motherfucker got kicked out. And I listened to It Could Happen Here by Robert Evans. Great podcast if you haven't heard it. And I didn't really see Seattle being the autonomous zone. I kind of saw maybe like something a little bit more Midwestern and barren. But I've never been to Seattle. I've never met anybody from Seattle. And it's just pretty interesting that you had Seattle breaking away from the government to make demands. You know, Minneapolis would have been even one I would have expected. I'm worried about Tulsa. You know, Trump's holding his first rally there, and to be honest, that's incredibly shitty. Yeah, I'm not excited about any of that, especially after what we talked about in the morning about TPD, the major of the police department. Talking about how they don't shoot black people enough on public radio. So it's getting spicy. It's getting real spicy in the chili bowl. But Seattle comes through as a beacon of light of people being able to work together to get shit done. And that's why you have to dive into the inspiration and kind of ignore the other shit for a little bit. This document is to represent the black voices who spoke in victory at the top of 12th and Pine after 9 days of peaceful protest while under constant nightly attack from the Seattle Police Department. These are words from that night, June 8th, 2020. For ease of consideration, we've broken these demands into 4 categories: the justice system, health and human services, economics, and education. Now, I think that a lot of these are probably going to change, and it might not even be that permanent. I don't know if they're going to meet and make compromises, or if the state is just going to completely smash them, because we have a president that probably would love to. It may not be permanent, or it could be expanding. That's the thing about this. It is kind of the first part of decline in a revolution. Shouts out to re-education, but I think that would be within step 1 of a revolution, where we kind of see how far it's gonna go. I don't know if it's gonna make it to stage 2 where it may die as well, but just overall, this is like the craziest development I've ever seen. Like, 2020 is just trying to find ways to get like too crazy lit. Like, this is seriously, given the historical moment, like, this shit is fucking crazy. They defeated their city, and their city might have been dumb enough to like completely leave them because they thought they would torch the fucking place, but they didn't. They're holding it hostage now because they know that they care about their property. All right. Given the historical moment, we'll begin with our demands pertaining to the justice system. Their first point is the Seattle Police Department and attached court system are beyond reform. We do not request reform. We demand abolition. Now, this is unfortunate because I don't know enough history between Seattle's civilians and their criminal justice system. While Googling the little bits that I could throughout the day, there is a lot more to develop on this, and not enough has been reported on it through the mainstream media. In fact, this is probably going to be as heavily ignored as it could be. Too much autonomy is going on. We demand that City Council and the Mayor defund and abolish the Seattle Police Department and the attached criminal justice apparatus. This means 100% of funding, including existing pensions for Seattle Police, at an equal level of priority. We also demand that the city disallow the operations of ICE. This is a completely anti-fascist movement. I'm not gonna really let anybody fool me otherwise. This is an anti-fascist movement right there. Maybe that's who Bill Barr was talking about, who he was investigating. The second point, in the transitionary period between now and the dismantlement of the Seattle Police Department, we demand that the use of armed force be banned entirely. No guns, no batons, no riot shields, no chemical weapons, especially against those exercising their First Amendment right as Americans to protest. There's absolutely no cop right now that is going to accept point 2. They're not going to accept point 2. I'm not saying that this shit's a pipe dream or like good or bad, but I mean, they did use it against people using their First Amendment. So, I mean, how are they going to feel about getting rid of them entirely? Like, number 3, I like it though. I like it. They make demands. They don't make requests. Number 3, we demand to end the school-to-prison pipeline and the abolition of youth jails. Get kids out of prison, get cops out of schools. We also demand that the new youth prison being built in Seattle currently be repurposed. Hell yes. And, you know, I had listened to a great video over at Trekkie69's channel for his fundraiser talking about how the amount of money that we do spend on police shows, again, what our priorities are. Much like how we spend so much money on the military in our bigger budget, federal budget, we also do the same thing at a local level. Rather than investing in education, which tends to get people further away from committing crimes and further into specialized craftsmanship, which we were all, I feel like, kind of meant to do. I mean, we all mostly have these hands that just won't stop doing shit, right? So just not giving people opportunities, but arming up to control those people that you aren't really giving opportunities, it just seems counterproductive. And that was a great point to make. I like that they're demanding in their third point that they repurpose all of this money. Number 4, we demand that not the city government nor the state government, but the federal government launch a full-scale investigation into past and current cases of police brutality in Seattle and Washington, as well as the reopening of all closed cases reported to the Office of Police Accountability. In particular, we demand that cases particular to Seattle and Washington be reopened where no justice has been served, namely the cases of Iosia Falatogo, Demarius Butts, Isaiah Obet, Tommy Lee, or Tommy Lay, I probably said that wrong, Sean Furr, and Charlena Lyles. Point 5, we demand reparations for victims of police brutality in a form to be determined. Number 6, we demand that the city of Seattle make the names of officers involved in police brutality a matter of public record. Anonymity should not even be a privilege in public service. Hell yes. Cannot agree more on point 6. I agree with the past points. I just wanted to have a moment of silence and not really put input on those. It has a lot to do with justice. Wonderful. Anonymity should not even be a privilege in public service. Beautiful. Number 7, we demand a retrial of all people in color currently serving a prison sentence for violent crime by a jury of their peers in their community. Wow. These demands are making me think that Seattle's criminal justice system is pretty fucked up. The fact that they want retrials and reparations. And you got to wonder how many victims there is and how much that reparations would cost. Is Seattle really ready to pay the price? And is the federal government willing to make them pay that price? That's me putting my hands up because I don't know. I don't know how this is going to go. But it's fucking wild. We demand decriminalization of the acts of protest. and amnesty for protesters generally, but specifically those involved what has been termed the George Floyd Rebellion against the terrorist cell that previously occupied this area known as the Seattle Police Department. This includes the immediate release of all protesters currently being held in prison after the arrest made at 11th and Pine on Sunday night and early Saturday morning, June 7th and 8th. And any other protesters arrested in the past 2 weeks of the uprising. The name Evan Herrera in particular comes to mind, who filmed Seattle police macing a young girl and is now in jail. We demand that the city of Seattle and the state government release any prisoner currently serving time for a marijuana-related offense and expunge the related conviction. That's fire. That is some fire. We demand the city of Seattle, and because it's long overdue. It's long overdue. It should happen here too. We demand the city of Seattle and state government release any prisoner currently serving time just for resisting arrest, if there are no other related charges, and that those convictions should also be expunged. I agree with this too. I don't understand how you can be detained for resisting being kidnapped. It's some people commit crimes and other people are committed to a crime. And it's just not right how it turns out sometimes. We're missing the point of justice. Alright, that one looks weird. That looks weird. Alright. Number 11, we demand that prisoners currently serving time be given the full and unrestricted right to vote, and for Washington state to pass legislation specifically breaking from federal law that prevents felons from being able to vote. God damn, dude. I feel like there is like there's gotta be some like municipal socialists up there or something, because like this is wild. This is wild. I mean, this is like a lot of what people on the left see as progress in this. And this is like the kind of shit that in the justice reform that people expected out of a Bernie Sanders presidency. You know, I don't want to be a Bernie or bust, but I will sing, Bernie, come back. Any kind of country sees we were wrong. I don't know, but you get my point. Bernie was the guy. Bernie was the guy to do some real fixing until, he died, or 4 years later we get someone else, or 8 years later we get someone else. But Bernie would have been the decent patchwork that we needed, the real unifier that we could have used for a bit. Number 12, we demand an end to prosecutorial immunity for police officers, aka qualified immunity. It's with an L. In the time between now and the dissolution of the SPD and extant justice system. Now, that's asking the city to offer the police officers to justice. Oof. This is some shit. Number 13, we demand the abolition of imprisonment, generally speaking, but especially the abolition of both youth prisons and privately owned for-profit prisons. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Reform Center sounds dark, especially when we get closer to a society that is 1984-ish. But I would argue that if we have the right intentions, a reformation center that isn't bad on paper, rather than prisons. Number 14, we demand a replacement of the current criminal justice system, the creation of restorative, transformative accountability programs as a replacement for imprisonment. Yep, there it is. Number 15, we demand autonomy be given to the people to create localized anti-crime systems. Oh shit, Neighborhood Watch is getting more power. Fuck a department. The Neighborhood Watches. The demand in every single one of these demands is a leftist move. This is union as fuck. This is This is just getting my left dick hard as shit. Like, this is too much for me right now. The fact that it's happening in a American city, and I feel like there are people who want to control things losing their fucking mind right now. But they're also trying to stay calm because they don't want people to see that they lost composure. I mean, control. No, composure was the right one. 16. We demand that the Seattle Police Department, between now and the time of its abolition in the near future, empty its lost and found and return property owned by denizens of the city. Yeah, that's the forfeiture, civil forfeiture. Completely against civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture can suck a fat dick. It's theft, it's robbery, it's wrong, and it was state sanctioned. Completely down with all of this. Number 17, we demand justice for those who have been sexually harassed or abused by the Seattle Police Department or prison guards in the state of Washington. The fact that that's a point means that's a problem, and gross. I expected more out of you, Seattle. 18, we demand that between now and abolition of the SPD, that each and every SPD officer turn on their body cams, and the body camera video of all Seattle police should be a matter of easily accessible public record. Yes, because it would be fascinating to live like in a timeline where every time you go to look up cop videos, it's actually just a bunch of cops being nice and saying like, hey, how are you? And like, you don't get as many like beat down videos. It's probably not as fun for a lot of people, but I'm just saying, you know, because they know that they're always being watched. 19, we demand that the so they're still expecting the abolition. I for some reason had thought for some odd reason that they weren't asking for the abolition anymore. It's between now and the abolition while they're still in force. But how are you going to how are you going to expect the SPD to uphold to these demands while still like once they get in suited up? I don't know how any of this works. It's nuts. 19, we demand that the funding previously used for Seattle Police be redirected into A, socialized health and medicine for the city of Seattle. B, free public housing, because housing is a right, not a privilege. C, public education to decrease the average class size in city schools and increase teacher salary. God, I'm just smoking this shit, bro. This is the dopest dope that's ever been written. Oh my God. D, naturalization services for immigrants to United States living here undocumented. We demand that they be called undocumented because no person is illegal. Borders are arbitrary. Yep. Beautiful. That's just the justice. It's just the justice. But the truth is that there's no justice until you fix the entire system, because they also have economic demands that must be addressed. Now, I don't know if every one of these demands is not met. I don't know how well this is going to go for them. So, marinating. Okay. We demand the degentrification of Seattle, starting with rent control. We demand the restoration of city funding for arts and culture to reestablish the once rich local cultural identity of Seattle. 3, we demand free college for the people of the state of Washington due to the overwhelming effect that education has on economic success and the correlated overwhelming impact of poverty on people of color as a form of reparations for the treatment of black people in this state and country. Boom. You know, the right's always asking, how would we even go about paying reparations? Like, why, and also why should I even pay for what my granddaddy did? I mean, they just laid it out so easy right there. It's right there. It's right there. Free college for the people of the state of Washington due to the overwhelming effect that education has on economic success and the correlated overwhelming impact of poverty on people of color as a form of reparations for the treatment of black people in this state and country. It's not complicated. You just gotta think about what can you do. Not why should you do, but what can you do. Number 4, we demand that between now and the abolition of the SPD, that Seattle police be prohibited from performing homeless sweeps that displace and disturb our homeless neighbors, and on equal footing we demand an end to all evictions. That's a hell of a sense of community right there. It's powerful shit yet again. Number 5, we demand a decentralized election process to give the citizens of Seattle a greater ability to select candidates for public office, such that we are not forced to choose at the poll between equally undesirable options. There are multiple systems and policies in place which make it impractical at best for working class people to run for public office, all of which must go, starting with any fees associated with applying to run for public office. The fascinating thing about all of this is that it has been positions on the left for a while, and even if this is not necessarily that successful, like it's going to become a growing movement in here. This is what comes with the United States not fixing a festering wound. They're attacking almost every problem that we see leaking out of America as Trump just tries to spray tan over his cracks. It's fascinating. It has a lot to do with that re-education video, talking about the steps of revolution, and this has clear-cut steps within the first step. I'm just mind blown right now. Related to economic demands, we also have demands pertaining to what we would call health and human services. It's got 3 rules. They demand the hospitals and care facilities of Seattle employ black doctors and nurses specifically to help care for black patients. I agree, because I unfortunately learned a horrifying fact last year that I think 30% of black mothers do not make it through pregnancy. And a lot of it has to do with nurses not believing them. And people don't want to think that they are racist just because they don't go out of their way to burn a cross. There's different levels of institutional racism. Institutional doesn't even necessarily mean that it's authority telling you directly what it is. It's built into how we interact with each other. It's almost a subconscious level institution. It's something that exists in our mind. And so for us to destroy it, we have to understand our minds. And unfortunately, the mind makes a perfect servant, but a terrible master. 3, we demand that the city create an entirely separate system staffed by mental health experts to respond to 911 calls pertaining to mental health crises, and insist that all involved in such a program be put through thorough, rigorous training in conflict de-escalation. Agreed. Finally, let us now address our demands regarding the education system in the city of Seattle and state of Washington. First point, we demand that the history of Black and Native Americans be given a significantly greater focus in the Washington state education curriculum. Agreed. 2, we demand that thorough anti-bias training become a legal requirement of all jobs in the education system, as well as the medical profession in mass media. There it is. Anti-bias training has to go into education system, medical profession, and mass media. Those are the perpetuators of the institution of racism. They already addressed the prison up top, and hopefully with the what did they call it again? Go up. Come on. What do they call it? Localized anti-crime systems. Solves that as well, because you have people within your community defending your community. Fuck yeah. 3, we demand that the city of Seattle and state of Washington remove any and all monuments dedicated to historical figures of the Confederacy whose treasonous attempts to build an America with slavery as a permanent fixture were an affront to the human race. All right, well, we have a couple names here transcribed by Irie Kenya and Austin C. Howe. Special thanks to Magic for starting and facilitating the discussion to create this list, to Omari Salisbury for the idea to break the list into categories, and as well a thanks to Kashama Sawant for being the only Seattle official to discuss with the people on Free Capitol Hill the night that it was liberated. Although, and this is a quote from them, although we have liberated Free Capitol Hill in the name of the people of Seattle, we must not forget that we stand on land already once stolen from the Duwamish people, the first people of Seattle, and whose brother John T. Williams of the CHAZ I fucked that up for sure. Tribe up north was murdered by the Seattle Police Department 10 years ago. Black Lives Matter all day, every day. Ooh, holy particle beam. That's a real live list of demands, or else you do not get your law and order back. I can tell you that I love to see it. The government probably not so much. It's pretty hot though. That's some pretty hot stuff. I had seen something interesting when I went in here. Let's go in that. Now let's hop over here real quick though, because we have to check sources here. So we have a look inside Seattle's newly formed Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, written by mynorthwest.com. Seems to be a blog. Live radio. ESPN Seattle. Alright. It is a local Seattle. On Monday, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin announced that police at the city's East Precinct would be leaving the area and reopening streets that had been blocked off for almost 2 weeks. It didn't take long before what's become known as the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone began to take shape. Barriers originally set up by police have been repurposed to set up the borders of the zone. What was used to be the Seattle Police Department on the corner of 12th and Pine now reads Seattle People Department. KIRO Radio's Hannah Scott and Nicole Jennings spent time in the CHAZ. That's funny. Tuesday, watching for hours as 100 or so people began setting up tents, putting up signs, and preparing to set up camp as part of their ongoing protest against police brutality. Quote, "It was a really energetic day. It was very peaceful," Hannah reported. "Really a whole different vibe that I'd seen the other nights I've been there. A very peaceful experience, almost like a street fair, honestly. Because there were no cops there. Fascinating." Reporting early in the afternoon Tuesday, Nicole also described free food and medical aid available for demonstrators on every corner. Some food and supplies were also distributed to the homeless population in the surrounding area. The group even reportedly organized its own garbage collection Wednesday morning. Fascinating. Later on in the night, a projector screen was set up as the crowd gathered to watch Ava DuVernay's documentary on systemic racism in the U.S. prison system, 13th. News of that reached DuVernay herself, who gave the group a shout-out on Twitter. "That fucking documentary made me cry." When it zooms out to show all of the people that have died from police violence it's very heartbreaking. Because it never should have been a thing in the first place, but here we are. Blessings and bravery to all the good people at CHAZ tonight. Onward. Yep. It's pretty cool. Somebody just plugged their laptop into the projector and they got it running. That's pretty cool. The crowd stationed at 12th and Pine is trying to prove it can operate on its own without police no longer occupying the East Precinct. Quote, their position is that they can take care of themselves, Hannah said. The group also recently published a lengthy 30-point list of demands for Seattle City Council and Mayor's office. Some go far beyond what council members like Teresa Mosqueda and Kashama Sawant have proposed in recent days, including a call to abolish the police department and the attached criminal justice apparatus. That's what it is, though. Other demands on the list are more wide-ranging, including rent control, restoration of city arts funding, and free college across Washington state. Speakers throughout the day addressed smaller-scale changes as well, including one who stressed the importance of investing in black-owned businesses. It's unclear how long the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone will be allowed to remain in the area around 12th and Pine, or even how long police plan to stay out of the East Precinct. In the meantime, though, the crowd appears hunkered down for the long run. That wasn't that much of a deep dive look inside of as much as I'd seen, because I'm not really sure how they're going to defend their position, say if the state wants to smash their property. Fox News reports on it like, Seattle protesters storm City Hall, demand mayor resign after driving police out of area, declaring autonomous zone. What's funny, though, is that last article said that the police got called to a different area, and so the protesters just kind of walked there, marched there, and just, oh, this building is empty. Well, I guess it's ours now. Fox uses extremely violent language such as storm, demand, which they do have a list of demands, and driving police force out of area. Those are very, very violent language for something that was just earlier claimed as a march. They have a video here. Let's see this this storming and driving out of police. Go ahead. No? Nothing?
Defund SPD. Hundreds of protesters take over Seattle's City Hall overnight, led by a councilwoman there.
That looks like a storm.
The group calling to defund the police department and the mayor to resign, Brian.
Seems like a dangerous storm, like an eye of a hurricane. Yeah, that's their language is a joke. Their language is a joke. A bunch of jokers. Oh, don't play the next video. You don't just start playing the next video. So they're following through on the Russia probe, huh? I guess I could just back out because I don't want to read the Fox News article. I'm sure it's full of dog shit that would just make me sick. There's a WordPress article. I don't know how much I trust these. It says Q13. Why would Q13 use WordPress? I mean, it kind of looks like a authentic website, but why WordPress? Anyways, while some streets in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood remain closed by it wants to put officers back to work inside the East Precinct. Boarded up earlier this week. Along with city agents are working to identify and engage with protester leadership to move towards resuming operations at the facility. Doesn't mean that's going to go well. During a brief press conference, the department worries a criminal element in the neighborhood might be exacting extortion on businesses and neighborhood inside what's been dubbed the autonomous zone. All right, that language right there is not showing me that they are going to be showing much restraint. There we go. Got it out. And nor do they see negotiating as a... it might be a possibility. I'm sure they're going to try to negotiate almost all of the demands to the lowest bare minimum. But the fact that the assistant chief is already worried that there's a criminal element, quote unquote, not good. Not good for peace negotiations. Nolet said the department received anecdotal reports of people being charged a fee to come and go into parts of the neighborhood, but she would not elaborate, nor would the department's public affairs offer further information, including how many official reports it had received, if any. Cool. That guy, the guy who was the business owner in the neighborhood, had absolutely nothing mean to say about the protesters. So that's great. Right now, we are only on priority calls, which means people citywide who need a police response are not receiving it. Priority calls. What's a priority call? During these times, that's very strange. Or is that the reason why they're not there? The department claimed it had also received reports where business owners and neighbors have been stopped for identification checks at blockades, sometimes by people carrying firearms. Yep, that sounds like an autonomous zone. Nolet reminded armed protesters should exercise restraint and avoid raising concern among neighbors. Nolet should remind her police force they should exercise restraint and avoid raising concern among neighbors. Quote, while they have constitutionally protected right to bear arms and a well-regulated militia, while Washington is an open carry state, there is no legal right for those arms to be used to intimidate community members, she said. So we're building the rhetoric here in case force is going to be needed. Not excited about that. Thank you, Q13, for your local reporting. Not excited about that. Absolute Blaze TV, bro. Oh. Let's just get a little bit of time here.
Today, protesters storm City Hall in Seattle and declare parts of the city an autonomous zone. Also, Merriam-Webster changes the definition of racism after a 22-year-old girl, complains. We've got a lot coming up, and it starts right now. Welcome to the News and Why It Matters. I'm Sarah Gonzalez, today joined by Elijah Schaefer, host of Slightly Offensive on Blaze TV. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I actually don't want to be here, but it's not your show. Oh. The world's crazy right now, and we got to get back out there. We got to show the truth.
I got to be here every day. How do you think I feel?
Hey, well, we need
I got pregnancy hormones going on. I'm like, this sucks. I hate everything right now. Also joined by Jason Buttrell, chief researcher of the Glenn Beck program. Thanks for being here as well. Are you as pessimistic about being here today, or are you're okay with it?
No pregnancy hormones here.
Are
so
we sure?
That's fine.
I'm honest. Look, I have pregnancy hormones myself. I have birthing pains for the country. Like, I'm seeing what's going on, and like you were just mentioning, and I am going, oh my gosh, it is so confusing. I mean, we were just discussing before we got on, what's the detail here or there? It's so hard to know what's actually happening right now because journalists are intentionally being dishonest and people are purposely leaving out information. And it's just, you go, what the hell is happening?
Yeah. So speaking of that, we're talking about Seattle and what's going on there. Now, the reports as we know them to be right now is that a city councilwoman, Kashama, I believe is how you say it, Sawant, and her staff apparently unlocked the doors of City Hall and let hundreds of George Floyd protesters inside the building. And here's a little bit of just.
Don't really want to listen to Blaze TV break this down, mainly because of the fact that they're a bunch of tar. Ooh, I used the wrong word there, didn't I? I almost stopped myself too at the same time, but Blaze TV, who supports Steven Crowder, is not going to get much attention from me right now. All right. Here's what's happening at the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, also known as CHAZ, formerly known as Free Capitol Hill, is a 6-block space with no current police presence. In a series of tweets, Seattle Mayor explained the removal of officers was an effort to proactively de-escalate interactions between protesters and law enforcement outside the East Precinct. Since removing the officers from the East Precinct, the area has become a site of peaceful protests. On Twitter, the name Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone has thrown around and has stuck, often being referred to simply as CHAZ. According to Reddit user Houseplant Hustler asked me anything about CHAZ. No single person has stepped up and claimed the neighborhood. People just gave it the name CHAZ after the police left. It's just a protest area that the police left. Then Twitter named it CHAZ after a few signups got put up. The area has since been plastered with murals. Sweet. Sweet. I can almost smell the revolution in the air. It's coming from Seattle. That's amazing. I don't think anybody really expected it to go this far, but I mean... the anarchy and riots happening at CHAZ. That's funny. They got the list of demands on here too. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, and look at how many people, like, mainstream media is not reporting on Seattle. City Journal says Antifa activists claim first territory in Seattle. That's funny. Like, City Journal's acted like it's already a war. That's pretty interesting. Seattle's hard left secessionist movement has claimed the first territory 6 blocks in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. That's funny. After reading their demands, they're definitely not secessionists. If their demands are not met, they're likely to be secessionists. If the state smashes them, they're likely to be secessionists. It's kind of hard to see where this is going to go at this point because there's a lot of contention. But City Journal right now is coming off as pretty anti-Antifa. For the past week, Black Lives Matter and Antifa-affiliated activists have engaged in a pitched battle with Seattle police officers and National Guard soldiers in the neighborhood, with the heaviest conflict occurring at the intersection of 11th and Pike, where law enforcement had constructed a barricade to defend the Seattle Police East Precinct building. Hoping to break through the barricade, protesters attacked officers with bricks, bottles, rocks, and improvised explosive devices. IEDs? Bruh. How are you the only ones reporting that they have IEDs? And why are there no sources? Why is there nothing for me to click on this page that says that there were improvised explosive devices there? Eye on the news, right? Right. Christopher F. Rufo. Is this a thing? Oh, he would. He fucking would, bro. Yep. He's a director of Discovery Institute Center of Wealth and Poverty. Never heard of that either. Contributing editor of City Journal, and he has a new film for free. I haven't even gone into the rest of this, but Is this a trailer? But for me to watch the movie, I have to
hate to
email
say
him.
it, the neighborhood I grew up in, which was once beautiful, it's a ghetto now. Seems like poverty is kind of like a really mean disease that just kind of slowly creeps and consumes, and it's just spreading.
Everybody has a story. It could be through drugs, it could be through abuse, it could be through violence. And our families are broken down, our communities are broken down, people's lives are broken down, they're devastated.
This is the story of 3 forgotten American cities. I spent 5 years exploring this lost American interior. I thought I'd be telling an economic story, but over time I discovered there's a deeper human crisis.
My dad
Tucker Carlson
is
says this
in
film will
jail
shock
in
you.
Texas right now, and he's been there for about 2 years. Somebody that you really love goes away. It's like a piece of your heart missing.
Man, it's really hit home for me, man. You know what I'm saying? I tell people all the time, man, that man, my mama raised 3 boys, man. Man, and both of my brothers were killed, man. And man, my brothers were my friends, man.
If I didn't have a family, I wouldn't be alive right now. The only thing that keeps my heart beating, the only thing that keeps my old heart from giving up on me, is knowing that I have a reason why to keep breathing in and out and moving forward.
Bring peace to this neighborhood. Bring salvation to this neighborhood.
Change starts with us. If we can affect a person, we can affect the community, we can affect the city, we can affect the world.
Fuck, what the hell is that? What the fuck? Because it seems like it's really heartfelt, but what the fuck? God, it's another one of those Republican flips. I swear to fucking God. I don't know how he's gonna do it, but I'm not giving him my fucking email. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez, Rick. So, sending some officers to the hospital. Then in a stunning turn of events, the city of Seattle made the decision to abandon the East Precinct and surrender the neighborhood to the protesters. Quote, "This is an exercise in trust and de-escalation," explained Chief Carmen Best. Officers and National Guardsmen emptied out the facility, boarded it up, and retreated. Immediately afterward, Black Lives Matter protesters, Antifa black shirts, and armed members of the hard left John Brown Gun Club seized control. I did not know that is still active. Redneck Revolt? Okay. Sure. Moved the barricades into a defensive position and declared the Capitol Hill dominant zone. Even putting up a cardboard sign, "You are now leaving the USA." On the new rebel states, rebel. Yeah, rebel scum. On the rebel states' first night, the atmosphere was festive and triumphant. Hooded men spray painted the police station with slogans and anarchist symbols, renaming it the Seattle People's Department East Precinct. I feel like he tried to fuck it up with the East Precinct at the end. They just called it Seattle People's Department. Because why would they have an East Precinct? They don't have a West. Like, it's just Seattle People's Department. I don't know the truth on that, but I feel like that sounds so not roll of the tongue that he added it on there because of that. Again, there's no citation, so I can speculate whatever the fuck I want about this dude's article. He has no proof of anything that he has typed here. CHAZ Simone, a local rapper with an AK-47 slung from his shoulder and a pistol attached to his hip, screamed, "This is war," into a white and red megaphone and instructed armed paramilitaries to guard the barricades and shifts. Later in the night, I like the imagery. Fuck yeah, Raz. I'm sure he didn't scream that. Later in the night, Simone was filmed allegedly assaulting multiple protesters who disobeyed his orders, informing them that he was the police now, sparking fears that he was becoming the de facto warlord of the autonomous zone. Expect to hear more about Raz and his rise to power. This is all rhetorical, you know. Fascinating. Seriously though, Raz Simone, keep an eye out. A homeless man with a baseball bat wandered along the borderline, and 2 unofficial medics in medieval-style chainmail stood ready for action. Again, there's no pictures and there's no proof of any of this. This is just a blog calling itself City Journal. And yet, it's on there more than CNN about this. That's funny. Nikita Oliver, a radical activist and former mayoral candidate, emerged as a critical voice of the protest movement and assumed a leadership role in the newly declared autonomous zone. Wait, but if she's the leadership role, doesn't that mean that Raz is going to have to kill her? Ooh, more to come soon. There's more to develop on that. After night fell and a light rain began falling, she spoke to the crowd and outlined the ideological commitments behind the occupation. We need to align ourselves with the global struggle that acknowledges that the United States plays a role in racialized capitalism, she told protesters. Racialized capitalism is built upon patriarchy, white supremacy, and classism. I'm sure she didn't say that because capitalism is built upon racism, patriarchy, white supremacy, and classism. I don't know what racialized capitalism is. I don't think I've ever heard anybody use that term. I think he made that up. The following day, a coalition of black activists associated with the autonomous zone released a more specific list of demands, including the total abolition of the Seattle Police Department, the retrial of all racial minorities serving prison time for violent crimes, and the replacement of the police with autonomous, restorative, transformative accountability programs. Nope, he didn't even get that right either. Ooh, did he put the right... The only source in here right now is their list of demands. What are you doing, dude? Like, if they're willing to read their demands, they'll see that you're misinterpreting things. Even though the demands will sound pretty radical to most people, especially people like you. So, you're probably not taking a chance, I guess. Activists pledged to maintain control of the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone until their demands are met, setting the stage for a long-term occupation and the establishment of a parallel political authority. Dual power struggle. We don't know that for sure yet. The city government has not developed a strategic response to the takeover of Capitol Hill, according to a Seattle police officer with knowledge of internal deliberations. This is like Alex Jones sourcing right now. The city's leadership is in chaos, and the mayor has made the decision to let a mob of 1,000 people dictate public safety policy for a city of 750,000. I'm not really sure if it is 1,000. You know? I haven't seen numbers on that yet, actually, so that's kind of disappointing. The tide of public opinion is on the side of the activists, and they're pushing the envelope as far as they can, said the officer. It's not hyperbolic to say the end game is anarchy. Yeah, buddy, get that fucking anarchy up in your shit. It looks like that is what they intend with their plans, is to get closer to almost a socialist idea. It seems like they still require a lot of the states' compromises. They still need the state to participate in their socialist ideals, but that's just forcing the system to change. If you can't get a representative or many representatives to represent your ideals, then you force the system to change yourself, or you don't let it get back to work. That's essentially what they're working on here. In-game being anarchy? That's if, like, honestly, if it eventually does become like a wholly autonomous zone for like a year, it'll more likely build up a more anarchic or libertarian socialist kind of ideal, or move towards that. It depends. I don't know who's up there working on what. This is not necessarily an organized movement, but if it's moving like the way it is, it definitely has people who organize movements there collaborating. So let's take that into consideration, Christopher. Politically, the Seattle City Council has already begun to champion the protesters' demands. Socialist Alternative Councilwoman Kshama Sawant declared the takeover a victory against the militarized police force of the political establishment and the capitalist state. I mean, I think they're trying to equate her with a lot of Marxist language so that people who already fear Marxism, aka Jordan Peterson stands or lobsters, whatever you want to be called, this already energizes them. This is, I have been seeing from the right calls of like action, and we know what kind of action they're calling for. So be aware of this language. Language is spellcasting, and it turns thoughts into action. So pay attention to it. 3 council members have signaled support for a 50% reduction in the police budget, with additional council members likely to support a similar policy in the coming weeks. Sawant also opened Seattle City Hall, which had been closed by the mayor, to protesters who immediately occupied the building, because get fucked. Yeah, they wanted all of it gone, the whole budget gone. Because they want to work on reforming their state rather than continually policing it. Because continually policing your neighborhood is almost like it's deteriorating, because crime keeps going up and you just keep throwing cops at it, but crime just keeps going up, so you keep throwing cops at it. Well, they want to reform well beyond any reform that any moderate or conservative has wanted to take in the history of this country since abolishing the slaves. So anybody standing in the way of that, honestly, go find a giant flagpole to go fuck yourself with. I don't understand why you would want to stay in a system that continually oppresses and then widens the amount of people that it can oppress, because the closer you become to the working class, the more you start looking like a brown-skinned dude like me. The CHAZ has set a dangerous precedent. Armed left-wing activists have asserted their dominance of the streets and established an alternative political authority over a large section of a neighborhood. They have claimed de facto police power over thousands of residents and dozens of businesses, completely outside of the democratic process. I know a lot of this language is exaggerated, but there is a lot of conditions that we have to take into consideration here, whether or not people are voluntarily participating in the region. If there are people being held against their will, which I'm not saying that there is or that there isn't, that is a problem, if there is. And I don't see this movement supporting that, but also at the same time, if they took neighborhoods, which I don't think they did, it seems like they took a city square, then yeah, they're holding some people hostage, but because those people can't necessarily move. They don't have the means to, maybe. But I don't know if it's 100% like that. I don't know what the situation is like there, but I'm kind of assuming that the place has solidarity if they were able to make this much effective change. You know? In a matter of days, Antifa-affiliated paramilitaries have created a hardened border, which is funny because it's actually with equipment that the police donated. So, oh, God. The right is so bad at writing narratives, and yet people just eat them. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Gobble, 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 gobble. Wait, whoa. Establish a rudimentary form of government based on principles of intersectional representation and forcibly removed unfriendly media from the territory. They have a link here. Where does the link go?
They're reporting fake news right here. We're not violent. No one should be violent tonight. We're not violent. We're peaceful. They're reporting fake news right here. We're not violent.
I don't... Is that an actual tweet of you and your people there, Christopher? Because this seems like to be some random Elizabeth Turnbull showing one member of the media getting heckled. Not sure what this proves. Still trying to figure it out as I circle this image that, like, none of it makes sense. Nor does the movement of the mouse. Elizabeth Turnbull, may I peruse your profile real quick here since it's public. Volunteers have set up libraries here in the CHAZ with books by... Oh, you know what seems weird here? Looks like Elizabeth Turnbull is actually... likes the protests. She's actually on the side. What did you try to prove with this post? What? You've included two sources that I'm surprised actually you actually think help your argument. That's surprising. Extremely surprising. Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone is an occupation and taking of hostages. Is an occupation. This guy right here is already priming language to treat Antifa as if it was an insurgency, much like ISIS. It's not that, and in fact, it's not even Antifa. This is Seattle. These are the people of Seattle. It may be influenced by Antifa. It's a very their demands are very anti-fascist state. It's not a group. It's an ideology, Antifa. It's being anti-fascist. That's all it is. You know, if you don't like fascism, boom, you're Antifa. You did it. Congratulations. If you reject being anti-fascist, then you're a fascist. Boom, you did it. You picked a side. It's that easy. It's really that easy in this fight. It's actually that black and white, because anybody sitting in between is either conservative and liberal and doesn't know which side to pick, but tends to kind of lean towards the side of fascism, because fascism is the reaction to keep control of that state before it really slips through that grip. Whew. All right. The Hill did report about it, but it was 6 hours ago. Far behind local news and Fox News. Strange. And it was about around the same time that Christopher had his rant as well. Let's see. I want to go further into his... Let's see here. Autonomous Zone is devolving into warlordism. Rapper Raz Simone has been patrolling the barricades with an AK-47 and a handgun, has begun assaulting residents who disobey him. We are the police now, says his crew. We are the leaders. So why didn't he include this in his article that he posted up? That's so strange. Oh, he posted it 4 hours ago after his article. You're not very good at this, buddy. It's funny he says the city of Seattle cannot allow it to continue, but if you show solidarity actually with your people, your fellow citizens, that is Seattle. That is Seattle right now. Those are the people that live in Seattle. Thus, that is Seattle. Continually trying to undercut everything that the actual progressives do.
Your family is a change. It wasn't until things were made
Are you serious? Don't be so ignorant,
folks.
Yeah, we know.
I don't really even hear what this dude's saying, and I haven't seen his AK yet.
If your family is a change. It wasn't until things were made
Are you serious? Don't be so ignorant,
folks.
Yeah, we know.
Oof. Not able to run the video. This is sad. It's so sad.
If your family is a change. It wasn't until things were made
Are you serious? Don't be so ignorant,
folks.
Yeah, we know.
I think what they're actually arguing about is just like what the movement is standing for. I don't actually see him brandishing a gun or abusing anybody yet, but this video won't actually load. But, you know, judging by this dude's track record, it's probably not authentic. So, we can probably assume that. Let's try and go without the audio and just see if it just, like, keeps going. Have you seen this part? 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 Nope. Alright. Keep in mind, Simone and his accomplices are now operating as the de facto police. Antifa militants have seized control of a neighborhood in Seattle. Meanwhile, Governor Inslee is still worried about people not wearing masks at the park. Unbelievable. It's not a neighborhood. It's not a neighborhood. And by him saying it's a neighborhood, he's making people think that they are being more militant than they are. Just try to remember that video when the police actually came down the street and were shooting people who were standing on their porch. Try to remember that invading force when people try to tell you that these people are occupying a neighborhood, when really they're occupying a precinct and a few blocks outside of it. It could get worse. They could get more. President Trump says his first rally since March 2nd will be in Tulsa, Oklahoma next Friday. He's probably not going to mention the Tulsa massacre. There's not going to be a single message about it. When he goes to Tulsa, he's not going to spread any kind of solidarity. Dude, and every night, too, this dude tweets law and order. How insane is that? Whew. Social media, the propaganda of the neo-fascists. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Oh, man. Alright. Let's look up some news reports and see what's good.
Live to Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood, where protesters are set up outside the East Precinct for the 13th day, demanding justice and change after the death of George Floyd at the hands of police officers. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Steve Rabel, once again reporting from home.
And I'm Monique Minglavin from the Cairo 7 studios. Well, today, Seattle police said it is preparing to reopen that precinct. And Cairo 7's Dee Dee Sun is there live right now. Dee Dee, police say they are hoping to move forward on this.
That's right, Monique. Right here behind me, you can see there's a crowd of people who are sitting down for a town hall discussing the future right now. Over there, you can see the Seattle Police Department East Precinct and that large sign that says this space is now property of the people. Seattle Police said today all of this is technically illegal, the whole blocking officers from this area, but they want to approach the situation with conversation.
What law is that?
A cop-free co-op with food and supplies. Murals that honor the Black lives killed by police. Signs in Capitol Hill declare this area an autonomous zone.
I think it means a lot of things. An anti-racist zone. Everything in the autonomous zone is free right now.
Many businesses in the neighborhood, just starting to reopen because of the pandemic, are supporting the movement.
We've been setting out free coffee for the protesters and doing everything we can to support them.
But there are also barricades preventing the Seattle Fire Department from getting access to respond to emergencies.
The ultimate goal is we want to see our streets open.
And some residents say entrances to their buildings are blocked.
It's a bit stressful. It's like checking in with somebody to go into your own home.
The Seattle Police Department East Precinct removed barriers and cleared out of the building Monday to de-escalate the situation and boarded up the building.
We wanted to be able to facilitate and support peaceful demonstrations.
The assistant chief said today they've also received threats of arson.
We were made aware that there were several threats to burn down the East Precinct.
She pointed out the building is connected to apartments and businesses. Protesters say they're out here to spread their message peacefully.
Anybody causing any trouble towards the building does not have anything to do with what we're trying to do. They are on their own agenda. They are on a selfish agenda. Honestly, we're here for the people.
In fact, yesterday we showed protesters who said they armed themselves to protect the property in case of troublemakers. But people here emphasize it was critical to take over the building, at least from the outside.
So now they're being forced to look at us and hear us out. This isn't normal for people. We shouldn't have to force ourselves to live like this just to be heard.
I do want to point out not all protesters out here support this area being called an autonomous zone, and some say they feel it detracts from the message. The Seattle Police Department tells me they are working to figure out how to best start these conversations to move forward. Live in Capitol Hill, Dee Dee Sun, Cairo 7 News.
I'm not sure if that tracks. You know. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, it's part of a protest, and it's putting the cops in a very difficult position. It's putting the state in a very difficult position. We don't know how much of the movement is going to relent if the demands are not met. And if the demands are not met, then how violent is the state going to be in their response?
And y'all, there's already a party going on up here at the West Precinct. There's a hell of people. So we are now reconvening with a group that looks like they've been out here all day. This is amazing. As you see, we still have the medic booth set up. I'm gonna get a shot of that from a distance. They don't want to be filmed. But this area over here is our medic and supply station. There's donations, there's water, there's food, there's PPE equipment. We got the Cal Anderson Park where we were earlier today and all this week. This is now the Reclaimed People's Street, y'all.
It's pretty cool.
We got coffee and soup. Thank you. Shout out.
That's what I'm
We
saying.
got in the
Coffee.
window, Black Lives Matter. That's that rickety ass fire escape I was on.
There's a lot of wonder in that. And now this is a fascinating angle. It's like an all-day stream of just the corner. Yeah, a lot of criminals there. You gotta wonder how they're holding down the zone from cops getting in. that's the only thing I'm curious about.
What the fuck is that? That's a war crime. That's exactly right. So every day, our legal filing grows longer and longer and longer. And we're still analyzing her emergency orders and her illegal skateboards and illegal light bulbs. Because if you dig into these filings, they are complex and they are detailed. And we're doing that hard work. And we will do it together. So the next movement, the next step for this work is we got to go from 26,000 digital signatures to 50 to 70,000 physical signatures, okay? So that means I'm going to be back out here in about a week, and we're going to have paper, and we're going to have clipboards, and you're going to have to go to your neighborhood, and you're going to have to spread this message across all of Seattle, okay? Because we will call Durkin, and we will send a message to everyone who thinks maintaining the status quo is somehow progress, incremental progress. That's bullshit. We want change. We want change to happen rapidly, and we want it to support all of our community. And the only way we can do that is
Solidarity, solidarity, solidarity forever, solidarity now, solidarity forever, solidarity now. Great. Great scat. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people are slowly reporting on this as it grows. Got multiple live streams going on here. It is going to be a developing issue. Oh, it's even live now. Good job, man. Keep up the good work. Here we are, raiding into another live. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. Fist emoji. I'm out. I just go around handing out fist emojis, that's all. NASCAR bans the Confederate flag. NASCAR taking a stand against its base. Oh man, it's okay, Rosie. It's okay. My dog don't like fireworks. It's okay. You're okay, Rosie. It's okay. Activists draws thousands to Boston protest. Movement still moving massive. Seattle poppin', bro. The Stranger says that the future of Capitol Hill's new autonomous zone is predictable. There are only two known futures for autonomous zones. One is institutionalization, and the other is destruction. He has one example from 1972. I guess you can use American. That's not American. So they're going to be institutionalized. Judging by June 9 press release, the mayor's office said he takes steps to create safe place for peaceful demonstrations. That process has already begun. This is how the city is responding to the sudden appearance of a troublesome autonomous space in the heart of one of the most gentrified neighborhoods in Seattle, replacing force with safety, hard control with soft control. This shift in approach is departmentally expressed by the replacement of the Seattle Police Department with these three city organizations. It's fascinating because for the success it needs to cooperate, but I don't know. Our work here is the preservation of the space in terms of middle-class ideals of order and beauty. This means it's now not a matter of the institutionalization of CHAZ, but how it will be institutionalized. Will it become a El Centro de la Raza, which now provides a real low-income housing to 300 residents and a plaza for politically progressive events like the Black Party at the station? Will it become like Manhattan's High Line, a park that for sure did not have an autonomous space at its source? No. I'm not sure it's either or. There's a multitude of directions that this could go. And we're not really sure which one it's going to take. But if you have not listened to It Could Happen Here, please do. It is great information on how it could all happen here. So that's all we know right now. So far, there just seems to be a protest, occupation, and a mutual aid and cooperative to reach the people's demands. But it got me all kinds of hot and bothered just because of the fact that like they cornered off a place to create people's rule, the dictatorship of the proletariat. Like that's that shit right there, and it's a microcosm right now inside the United States. And my word, did that fluster me all kinds. I got all kinds of reshaped from that, but I mean, how do you close out something like the Seattle? Oh, is this how we do it? Radio Open Source says Dr. Cornel West on the unpopular James Baldwin. Who the fuck thinks that James Baldwin is not popular? Like, does that mean liked or just like unrecognized? Because if he's underrated, I'll take that. But unpopular? Inside America's largest right-wing militia, the 3%ers. 3%ers. It's surprising that we haven't heard anything from the 3%ers. Not saying that we should, it's just very surprising. Let's
The head of New York City's largest police union railing against what he says is the way the New York Police Department has been treated by the media and lawmakers.
Oh, Rose.
I am not Derek Chauvin. They are not him. He killed someone. We didn't. Stop treating us like animals and thugs, and start treating us with some respect. We've been vilified disgusting.
Jesse, defund the police won't really...
Pretty fascinating that he didn't really have anything other than we've been vilified. And that he's also just demanding respect, which is the only thing that authority can do when it's being questioned is, I need my respect.
really be an issue if we can't find people that want to work as police anymore.
That's true. I mean, these people volunteer. They're not drafted. It's a noble profession.
These people volunteer.
We should be thanking them. Whenever there's an emergency, who do you call? You call the police.
They get paid.
When your baby's...
You can volunteer for a job that doesn't give you a gun and a baton if you have problems using it too often.
Stops breathing. When your friend gets raped. When your dad ODs. When your husband has a heart attack.
What do you do when your dad ODs? You call the cops so he can get shot in the head. But
when there's a massive collision on the highway, you call 911, and they're there to help.
I don't remember the slogan being defund 911. Does anybody remember the slogan defund 911? Because, you know, if even more so, we could reallocate some of the funds that are given to the police into a healthcare system that doesn't have a ambulance ride costs $1,000. I don't know, just a suggestion.
They say, what's your emergency? You give the address, and within minutes, squad cars are there.
Within minutes, squad cars are there. He lives in a great neighborhood.
You know how much violence these people see? You know how much blood? You know how much danger? I mean, they wear bulletproof vests because they're being shot at. They're bad guys.
I feel like suburb police mostly hand out traffic violations, maybe domestic abuse and domestic cases, but I don't think they see the war zone that everybody seems to be painting that the cops face every day. Like, it wasn't a war zone until the cops came out in riot gear. Am I right? Or am I just, oh wait, I'm left. Yeah, that's right.
Out there who take advantage. There's scam artists, there's con artists, identity thieves, strong-arm robberies, all...
Wait. You call 911 for identity thieves? That's like an FBI thing. Hello, police, my identity's been stolen. What did he look like? Well, he probably looks like me now, but that was a jump.
Over the place. And these police are there to protect you. We just had a COVID-19 outbreak. You guys, everyone sitting home, washing your hands, watching Netflix. They're out there patrolling the streets every day with masks on. They're going into people's homes when there's a domestic...
I mean, they only had to start working 12 hours a day, 7 days a week because of the magnitude of work to be done in the prisons for all the people that they arrested and the amount of protests that they had to constantly, quote-unquote, police.
Dispute. When some girl calls the police because her boyfriend is drunk and beating her up, they're there to help her and to help other people. And to sit on the sidelines and say, you know, these guys are bad guys, we need to take their money away, they don't like black people. No, that's not the case at all. I think everybody needs to step back and look. These people are good people, and we need to honor them, because without...
Do we just accept that all cops are good? ACAG? I don't know. ACAG, there's something wrong about it.
Without the police, there'd be no civilization.
Without police, there would be no civilization. Without having a force constantly patrolling the streets. Did early agriculture really have to have like a police force to walk around and make sure that everybody was farming? I don't think so. Maybe.
Lawrence, when you saw the video of
but I doubt it.
That police union chief, what was your takeaway?
You know, it was heartbreaking because I think there is a similar feeling. You got the police that are saying, look, don't judge us by the bad apples, right? And you got people in the community saying, look, not all of us are criminals too, so don't treat us all like the bad guys as well. I think we're at a boiling point in this country, and we got...
Yeah, but do we have a problem with the institution of protesting? Some people have the problem with rioters, or quote-unquote rioters, or quote-unquote looters. But again, like, there are convincing arguments to burning down a fucking Target. I've heard them, and I stand by their side to burn down that Target and then repurpose those supplies for mutual aid. Did people walk out with TVs? Yes. Was that good? No, because I didn't get one. I had to stay here. But I don't think I would have taken a TV anyways. I like mine. I don't need more materials to move around every time I gotta move. So
gotta look at people as individuals. You know, I'm reminded of the Minnesota police chief. He did a press conference today, and he talked about him implementing the duty to intervene in his police department. This is a guy that's trying to reform the police department, got the majority of his cops to get on board. And now the story in Minnesota has become about the guy that put his knee and killed an American citizen and the other ones that didn't intervene, even though he was making so much headway in his police department. The bottom line, there are bad people out there, guys. There's bad criminals out there, bad American citizens, there's bad cops. We gotta reform this thing together, and we gotta look at each other's humanity. And I'm just afraid that the country, the wills, and us looking at each other as Americans, we're doing harm to ourselves right now. I think there are real reforms that need to take place.
it's a lot of empty rhetoric, a lot of empty messaging, and I think Martin Luther King would be very sad that somebody would look away from violence like this. I think I'm pretty sad that he's looking away from the systemic issues that we all seem to be living under, but apparently he doesn't have to worry about it because he has a couple extra thousand that buys him some privilege. I'm talking about the bank account, of course.
But there was a report by the AP today saying
nice
that
suit, by the way.
the Homeland Security is saying that people are leaking officers' personal information. That's not cool either. You can't put innocent cops at risk as well because you're angry. So we got to take a chill pill.
Why? Cops get your information. They're public servants, by the way. Let me remind you.
Emily, you said you wanted to make some comments about the police and defending the police in this block. Let you do that now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think this vilification of law enforcement is dangerous and it's absolutely heartbreaking. And we keep talking about
the demonizing of police is heartbreaking, and yet a system that won't change is not. I mean, you can't help but feel like America is purposely tearing itself apart into two sides.
the good officers out there. Well, Seattle PD, Seattle where I live, just lost one. Officer Josh Johnson posted a really sobering account on his personal Facebook page, and he said, he acknowledged the need for
It's on a personal Facebook page, and that's why you can't show it as a source. Because it's a personal Facebook post. Why are we taking this as authentic information?
reform and accountability, and especially the department's commitment to ensuring justice for all, he said. But by the way, this was not new. Seattle law enforcement has been invested in our community for quite some time and holding community meetings and gatherings and the like. And he said, however, that in the wake of George Floyd's killing, that he was hopeful, that he had hope that actually things could have that monumental change. But he said the only thing he learned in the last 2 weeks is that all hope has been extinguished for that. He said that he has seen his black colleagues be called traitors, Uncle Toms, and the N-words by white protesters, and that he sees now and acknowledges that the community, quote, doesn't want them there, that they have totally turned their back on them, and that they see them as worse than the criminals that they are there trying to protect. He said progress is off the table, discussion is off the table, progress counts for nothing, and that unity to address problems is dismissed. And keep in mind, you guys, the real victims here, as Jesse pointed out, they are domestic violence victims. They're in-state child pornography victims. They are sex trafficking victims. They are everyone who is voiceless at this moment, who is muted by these loud protests and cries for defunding, when we all know that the vilification of police will have lasting ramifications for our community.
Juan, that's good. Final thoughts from you.
Boo.
I don't see vilification of police. What I see is that we live in a system that celebrates police and protects police. And by the way, Dana, that man, that police chief, the police union representative that was talking there, I think, going back to something you touched on, unions are part of the root of this problem. Why is that? Because they protect bad cops, and they put it into the contracts. Today, in the press conference that Lawrence was referencing, Chief Arredondo in Minneapolis, he was talking about why that department is saying they're going to withdraw this contract with their police. And he said it's not about benefits, it's not about wages, it's about the fact that when you want to discipline a bad cop, the union has a contract that prevents that office, the chief of police, from doing that job. He can't get rid of a bad cop. He's got to put him back on the force, and even worse, he says he's got to put him back on the street. So you get somebody like the man who put his knee in George Floyd's neck, who had several issues, but again, he's back on the street. You have no data, no way to monitor, no process. That's the union not serving good policemen and women. And I think that's the real heart of the issue. When Jesse's talking about, well, if your girlfriend, boy...
I mean, we're still skipping all these systemic issues, which I think Seattle actually succinctly put together in their list of demands. And I think it is not an outrageous demand to ask of these things of the state that has shown that its statistics are effective at making a profit for prisons, but not for people. Resume.
Boyfriend is drunk or somebody has a heart attack. Maybe we shouldn't be sending police to that. Maybe we have to look at better ways to serve that need. But it's not about, tough cops and Dirty Harry showing up at the door. I don't think that serves the police or the community.
Well, Juan, if a woman's getting beaten up by her drunk boyfriend, I don't think a therapist is going to help her. I'd take law enforcement.
Yeah,
no, I think if it's violence,
I think everybody agrees with you on the unions. There's a lot of us agree, but what I have a problem with Democrats is if you guys can notice the fault with the unions, with the police department, why don't y'all see the faults with all the other police unions, like the teachers unions, that prevent us from getting quality education for our kids?
Kidding?
So a lot of us
Lawrence,
agree.
Wait, teachers
Lawrence,
unions
you're talking to me. I am somebody who definitely sees the problems with the teachers union because I don't see good public schools for black kids in cities. And if you know me, you know I'm for school choice. That's not an issue. I just don't like the way that these police unions are protecting bad cops.
All right, that was a terrible segment, but I do have to agree actually with him because the police union is the only union that I've found is actually a toxic force. Most other unions are actually a positive force, especially for the people who are members of them. I guess in a way that police do benefit from being in a police union, mainly because if you are a bad cop, yes, they will defend you and make sure that you have a job. It might be part of the reason, the whole part of, Attorney General Barr's thing with retaining and attracting, the law officers that they can get, and I think that has a lot to do with it. But I don't think there's anywhere else we can go from here because I think we done covered it all. The system fears change. They will blame Democrats and police unions and protesters before they blame the way that policing is has happened, and unfortunately, hopefully won't continue to happen. Oof. Cornel West is making the rounds right now since everything is going on. And, oh, no, that was 6 months ago. All right. My bad. But he has been popping up in more of these videos on my feed, maybe because I've been watching them because it's hella inspiring. That would be interesting. Let's see. Maybe what would be good is to just fade out on the unpopular James Baldwin. That's not what I'm picking. Let's see. Oh, the full thing with him and William F. Buckley. Oh, man. I might have to listen to that tomorrow. Ooh, and then they got the one with Malcolm X. Damn, they got a lot of full conversations with James Baldwin.
Tim, what do you see deep in the recesses of your own mind as the future of our nation? And I ask that question in that way because I think that the future of the Negro and the future of the nation are linked.
They're indissoluble.
Yeah. Now, what do you see? Are you essentially optimistic or pessimistic? And I really don't want to put words in your mouth because what I really want to find out is what you really believe.
Well, I'm both glad and sorry you asked me that question. I'll do my best to answer it. I can't be a pessimist because I'm alive. To be a pessimist means that you have agreed that human life is an academic matter. So I'm forced to be an optimist. I'm forced to believe that we can survive whatever we must survive. But the Negro in this country, the future of the Negro in this country is precisely as bright or as dark as the future of the country. It is entirely up to the American people and our representatives. It is entirely up to the American people whether or not they're going to face and deal with and embrace this stranger whom they maligned so long. What white people have to do is try to find out in their own hearts why it was necessary to have a nigger in the first place. Because I'm not a nigger. I'm a man. But if you think I'm a nigger, it means you need it. The question you got to ask yourself, the white population of this country has got to ask itself, North and South, because it's one country, and for a Negro, there is no difference in the North and the South. There's just a difference in the way they castrate you. But the fact of the castration is the American fact. If I'm not the nigger here, and you invented him, you, the white people, invented him, then you got to find out why.
Well,
and the future of the country depends on that, whether or not it's able to ask that question.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. That is going to be it for the Working Class Observer, the Class Warfare Report. I hope you stay out there safe and hella revolutionary because the times are lit. The times are lit, and it is time to keep it bright.